Give me one sec while we just get this live stream going, Coach B.
Sounds good.
Right on. Welcome, everyone who is joining us here in the Zoom Live, folks who are joining us in the live stream live, as well as anyone who's catching this on replay as it sits online. My name is Jake Tuber with the Endeavorun crew here, of which my dear friend, Coach B, Bertrand Newson, is one of our main coaches. And in addition to coming to some of our recent retreats, Coach B will be down at our retreat in San Diego this January, mid-January 2023. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the things he and others have in store for that. But tonight we've got the benefit of having him here. We've got an intimate audience in the Zoom. And Coach, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about some things that are going on for you recently. Some of the things, I know it's marathon season, many respects here. And you've got a lot of athletes training for that, et cetera. So I want to ask you about coaching in that regard as well. And I want to ask you a couple of larger questions about, your coaching purview. I know some people here are thinking about getting a coach, thinking about becoming coaches, already coaching, et cetera. So a lot of questions. So I really want to make sure we open it up to folks in the chat tonight and in the conversation itself. So if you've got a question of any kind for Coach B, whether it's something that you've thought of before and you had in mind to come here tonight and get answered, or it's a question that comes up during the course of our conversation, something you're prompted to ask Coach B about, you just can't resist, let me know in the chat. You can send a chat to everyone. You can send me a direct message and I can read that back, whatever it is. But Coach B, thanks for coming here, man. How's everything going for you?
Good. And here we are on the cusp of Halloween. And what a festive last few weeks and few months. I mean, so much going on in the world of running. Just think back a year ago when there were a handful of marathon majors happening, and now we've just been on a string of them. Several people on our call today have either participated in or are on the cusp of, i.e. New York, in just over a week. So I'm looking forward to hearing some marathon journeys. I think Scott Struhl and Coach Arena recently participated in Chicago, and Coach Gloria was overseas in Berlin. So perhaps being able to get some of their live marathon major race day experience, and how some of us are looking to close out the year in marathons at CIM, California International Marathon, the first Sunday of December. And any other questions that come up for the team, certainly here to help and assist.
Right on. Yeah, there's a lot going on distance running wise. You've got even some, I guess they're not really mid-majors if you use the NCAA parlance, but you've got Marine Corps Marathon, Indianapolis, which are right around the corner as well, in addition to the big ones like New York and also CIM. CIM doubling as the National Marathon Championships this year. So it'll be a fun pro and elite field out at that. And then once we get into January, which is around the corner, you've got Houston, which is always popular. We've got Carlsbad, where we'll be at running the marathon, the half, and some of the 5K in great temperatures. And then you've got a couple of really nice, fast races throughout the winter before a lot of folks look to Boston and London and things in the spring. So it does feel like things are kind of in full swing now. What's your experience like? You coach a lot of athletes, and you also, I don't know if coach is the right word, but coach and guide a lot of other coaches who are in turn coaching athletes in the midst of the season. How do you find yourself dealing with a lot of the last minute questions? Coach, this is coming up here. I'm feeling a little bit about this, whether it's anxiety, whether it's concerns, whether it's sudden injuries. What's your life like now as a coach in the midst of this marathon season that might not be the case if we found you in, say, early July?
Let's see here. What's the one word to encapsulate the rewarding? So why is that? Because the journey it's taken to get to this point, Coach Jake, being in a training cycle or training cycles that may have started back in 2021, and for athletes to navigate tune-up races, navigating through injury, balancing family, work, and other, and to see race day on the horizon. And of course, there's going to be some nerves. But asking the athlete that we just take a deep breath. What are we doing? We are running. We're just putting one foot in front of the other, and trust the process. Trust that we have had opportunity to perfect the nutrition game plan, to trust the fact that we've had the opportunity, in some cases with Coach Matt's advice, the pacing strategy, and that when we toe the line on race day, that we will be best prepared. We studied the course, we know the weather conditions, and just again to trust the process. So it's been a busy time frame, but also a rewarding time frame, because I am able to travel with the athletes to Berlin, to Chicago, to London. Super, super cool. There are people on this line that I've had conversations with on a weekly basis, the day before their big marquee marathon, and in some cases the morning of, and then being able to follow them step for step, mile for mile, and look at that, all that hard work pay off on race day. And sometimes it ends up in a personal best. And sometimes we're just chasing the finish line. And the stories in between, for me, is what's most gratifying. So I'm loving this time of the year. Quite busy, but incredibly fulfilling.
I realized in asking a coach to ask you what I'm about to ask you, it's sort of like asking you to pick your favorite child. But is there a particular story of anyone on your team, or any one that you're working with in some capacity this time around, that you're particularly excited about its trajectory, its culmination, where it is? Every one of them is unique in their own way. That's the power of running, whether it's long distance or something shorter. But anything in particular that you've been humming about lately?
Wow, that is an excellent question. All the stories are unique to the athlete, all profound in their own way. And I cannot just comment on one. I can share tidbits of, and I'll start first with the gentleman you referenced who's in Jersey, Scott Struhl. Okay. Scott came onto my emotional radar in 2021. Then he became friend and athlete, and had some running success. But his story prior to him getting into running is what really connected the both of us. And I hope Scott is not rolling his eyes because he's off screen right now, but he knows what I'm about to say. Some of us are inspired. There are events that happen to us where there's a calling, and some of us just like to stay active and fall into running. In Scott's case, I believe he was he enjoyed golf. He was a tech professional, but probably, well, I know that he found himself by way of a significant medical emergency on the operating table, looking at life directly square in the eyes, not knowing that if he would wake up, okay, he had open heart surgery. And for him to wake up and to see his son and wife there, he took charge and never took a day for granted, which I think for him allowed running to resonate more than most, because from running, you get out of it what you put into it. And Scott has put a lot into running, and it's rewarded him in many ways. He's part of this fitness family right here because of his love of running. And he recently completed his very first marathon major in Chicago earlier this month. And in being part of his journey, not just training, but being able to share the ebb and flow, and knowing what is going on in his life outside of running, how running can be a vehicle to help manage stress and a good quality therapy, a way to further your social circle, which he has done, and the opportunity to pay it forward. Scott is doing product reviews. Scott has a YouTube channel. Scott is giving back to the running community in many ways what it has given him. And knowing that he still has the bug, and probably by his own admission is not satisfied, and he wants to run longer and run faster, but his passion for the sport is incredible. And our friendship that's cultivated by it has been incredibly rewarding. So that would be one.
Just one. Yeah, no, that's
just one.
That's
yeah.
a good one to pick. And it was exciting to see Scott crush Chicago in that way. And like so many others, including some others on this call, et cetera. B, we often talk about how runners grow over time, and each year, each cycle brings new challenges, new learning, et cetera. It's a constant theme as we coach, as we put together events and things like that. And it's true of our coaches as well. And one of the gifts of coaching is how much we learn from our athletes, even if we're in a sort of more of a teacher role. And in fact, doing that is where we could perhaps learn most about ourselves if given the time for reflection. As you grow as a coach, I'm curious, what do you find yourself saying now to athletes this October that maybe you weren't saying an October ago or 2 years, either about training from a physical standpoint, knowledge you've picked up, technique you've picked up, advice in that giving, or larger themes that you feel like it resonated with you? What's different about the kind of things you're talking about today as a coach from a year or 2 years ago?
That's a good question. Another good question, Coach Jake. Let's see here. I think going back for me as a coach a year or two ago, there's no substitute for putting in the work. Okay. And the importance of that. I mean, we can look at a race day and prioritize what's most important that's going to get you to that finish line in a desired time, or just being able to finish. And ultimately, putting in the work is the most important thing. So I think the Coach B of a year ago, 2 years ago, really harped on that, really drilled that down and helped the athlete stay consistent and motivated and engaged in the training. But there were nuances, key nuances that are game changers that can help the athlete, that we should be paying attention as much as getting in the workouts. And over the last year or so, the importance of nutrition, fueling is hypercritical, and being mindful of what is our intent. Granted, we have trained and we want to finish, and we may have a stretch goal out there from a time and distance, a time standpoint, but the importance of pace. Okay. Those two things, fueling and pace, and any of the athletes that I have on the call right now can speak to that. Very, very important that we use our long runs and other middle distance runs as opportunities to test drive and to fine tune nutrition and pacing strategies. And we talk about it. And in many cases, it goes great on race day. And in some cases, if we tend to stray away from a fueling strategy or a pacing strategy, we will see a different outcome. Sometimes we are a bit aggressive and we go out there and have those breakthroughs. And sometimes it's not the case, but we're learning along the way. So for me, to answer your question, harping on fueling and pacing in preparation for race day is the constant in my coaching voice currently.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I know many of your athletes, as well as other folks that you and I have connected with through Endeavorun, have been working with Endeavorun sports dietitian Lydia, sort of independently, to kind of really personalize their fueling game. Pace is a tougher one. That's a great topic. Somebody should write a book about it. I feel like there's a book in there somewhere when it comes to pacing strategy and how to execute that. Maybe I'll get on that. When you think about these athlete journeys, one thing that strikes me, especially with athletes who are building up to one big long race, I mean, this is different if you're training athletes for 10Ks, 5Ks, maybe even potentially half. But when you start getting into the racing distances where if you really want to have a performance event, you can only do so many in a short period of time. So it's really above the 10K where you really start getting into that for the most part. And one of the things that always strikes me as interesting is that if we're training for a specific event rather than just training ongoing, but there's a specific target goal, as we approach that goal, as we sort of think about the journey from the training start to that goal, there is the potential for those final weeks when, either because some combination of the taper crazies, as folks are slowing down their mileage in preparation for a big effort, but I think more so psychologically around the nature of being on the precipice of a goal like that, there's a degree of, for lack of a better term, mourning that goes on. You mourn parts of the experience that have already passed you by. You mourn what you could have done. You have some regret, etc. And I've seen athletes, I not necessarily go as far as self-sabotage, but there's this weird sort of like, hang on, everything, all the roads I've traveled, the miles I've logged, the pain I've experienced with that intention of doing this and a larger purpose there is now going to kind of show up on race day. And it's either going to go the way I want it to or better, or the way I almost want it to or worse. And that puts a lot of pressure on that event. That puts a lot of pressure on the journey to have its destination and somehow justify its experience and meaning. What kind of things do you talk about with your athletes when you notice them getting a little bit of this, what I'll call the psychological taper crazies, as opposed to just the physical sensations that go on when you drop your mileage and your body's itching to train? How do you help your athletes through the psychological taper crazies at the end of a ramp up to a big event?
Let's see here. One, does that happen? Yes, it does. It happens to the most experienced runner, the person who's chasing their 50th marathon or their first marathon. Anxiety, nerves, overthinking, wondering, especially in that taper window, whether it be 2 or 3 weeks. And, can I squeeze in another workout? Can I do a little bit more? Just to reflect back on what's gotten us to this point, that the training has been done. And yeah, you've heard that old, the phrase, the hay is in the barn, and reiterating that to the athlete. And the simple practice of taking a deep breath can be very profound, relaxing, and then being able to visualize, take the athlete to race day conditions, talk it through with them. If you happen to be in a Zoom format like this, maybe bring up the race website, look at the course map together, and then being able to remind the athlete again that you are ready, that we're not doing a triathlon, and no offense to all those triathletes out. No one's jumping in the water. No one's hopping on the bike. We're not doing a obstacle course race where, jumping through hoops and off diving boards and swim with crocodiles. It's the simple process of putting one foot in front of the other and immersing yourself in the mile that you're in. So, as an example, it's a 26.2 mile journey. Are we getting through the 5K mark and already thinking, shit, I got, 23 plus miles left, 22 plus? Don't take your mind there. Just be present and stay on top of what you've practiced, right? Pace is important. Nutrition is important, and stay within yourself and ask the athlete, because in many cases, the athlete will tell you, well, what is going on? Coach, I feel a little sick. All right. Well, what can we do to get more rest? And if you've been with the athlete for a while, go back to some coaching notes or pre-race timeframes and refer to those moments pre-race, and then how the favorable race outcome came, and remind the athlete of that. Okay. And ask the athlete what advice would they give themselves, because in many cases the athlete has the answer. And not trying to overthink it, that we're not necessarily trying to qualify for the Olympics, but the event can feel that way. It could be their Olympic their Olympic trials for them. The anxiety for that particular individual can feel that intense. So trying to pull back on some of that self-induced anxiety, reminding the athlete on the journey to this point, remind them of moments of success in their current journey that's relevant to the task at hand, and where they can still find fun and excitement, because we've signed up for this. This is what we wanted to do. So let's enjoy the experience. Let's give some love out there on the course, because I guarantee there's going to be somebody out there feeling worse or have as much or more anxiety. So we can help somebody just by acknowledging them on the course. And then it kind of allows us to detach a bit from our own overthinking scenario, just being more present on race day. And I always like to use the example going back to 2020 and for a good portion of 2021, where there were no races happening, none. Virtual this, virtual that, virtual this, virtual that. Now we are running races and we're not having to do this. We're not running with mask on. Okay. When we thought for a moment that live racing as we knew it wouldn't come back to the way it has. And it has. So to be thankful and not to take a race for granted and to be present sometimes is a good way to offset those pre-race jitters and all the questioning that as athletes we tend to ask ourselves. So those are a few examples.
Yeah, I certainly love the idea as a strategy of retracing previous similar experiences from what was going on, what we were feeling, what the result was. That'll help an individual build efficacy. And I love the combination of both being present during the race and on race day, and also externalizing. And what I mean by that is focusing on how you can give to others on race day, because you'll know there'll be people that need it. But by focusing on how you can cheer others on the course, how you're going to help others at the starting line, how you're going to help others as getting their journey on, focusing on how you can be helpful is actually interacting with a different part of the brain than your sort of fear-based centers are typically driving. And I love those two strategies for athletes who are getting those psychological taper crazies, worrying a little bit, both about the actual race, but also, worrying about the existential implications of this particular journey being another one that is coming to a close, and what that means. That can be tough in its own right. It's not just the pain of the race at mile 24 that we're fearing. It's the pain of loss from that experience that we've been on, being another one of the life experiences that is now over, and reconciling that in real time. And I think either of those strategies can be really helpful for different athletes. Let me ask you, there's one final question I really want to ask you. Well, there's actually one or two. So let me hedge that a little bit, but you're coaching an athlete. They put a good amount of pressure on themselves. Maybe it's healthy, maybe it's not, but the point is they really want it. And they get out there and run, and they're disappointed with the result. They cross the finish line. It's not the race they wanted. What am I likely to hear you saying at the finish line? But perhaps even more importantly, what are you most likely to say a week later when you jump on a Zoom call with them and talk about the experience and where they're at?
Boy, this is I love this question. Ultimately, we all want to finish. Okay. And you cannot take a marathon for granted. To cross that finish line, and whatever the time says, the finishing time, that's a huge accomplishment, incredibly huge accomplishment. Personally, the reason I love that particular distance is because there are so many moving parts in order to have your ideal race. It's not easy. And anything that you love and appreciate and cherish, sometimes you have to work really hard in order for it to really come together the way you want it to. So for an athlete to complete a race, half marathon, and not have the desired finishing time, first off, I'm going to say, congratulations, you did it. We finished. Be much tougher if due to injury or fitness level that we didn't finish. Okay. Much more harder to swallow. And then there are going to be some lessons that we will learn. And sometimes time needs to pass in order for those lessons to kind of bubble up to the surface. So one, at post race, hey, let's find the silver linings. You finished. And that we will be able to backtrack objectively. Let's let some time pass. And if that's a week or so, and then we can review what are some of the components that we can objectively say, man, we were right on point here. And then the stomach just went south. It was GI distress, or the weather conditions weren't as originally advertised. It was much hotter. And then did our pacing strategy, were we too aggressive with pace? And then coaches being able to ask questions and not try to answer for the athlete, ask and then zip it up and really let the athlete think and respond and be comfortable with a little bit of silence, because ultimately the athlete's going to tell you. If it's related to nutrition, how well did we execute a nutrition game plan? And where we want the athlete to feel comfortable in opening up, and not you should have did it this way. We practiced it this way. This is your fault. That is not going to work, because we are on the same side. We all want to learn more about that particular given effort, while celebrating that we still finished. And was the desired time realistic? Okay. Sometimes it can be a matter of seconds and minutes. Sometimes we can miss that mark. And sometimes it could be on the coach, where the expectations based on training too high. So to be able to have that conversation and reconcile and be able to glean the takeaways. Again, did we put in the work from a training perspective? What was our nutrition game plan and how well did we execute it? Did we control the controllables? Okay. Taking in fueling, being mindful of pace. Did we study the course well enough in advance, flat and fast, or hella hilly, and we were just too aggressive on the front end? There can always be some measurable takeaways that we can learn and put into our toolbox as we get into the next training cycle. But celebrating the success of finishing is huge. And we can say that time isn't always everything, but in many cases, especially when there's a coach relationship, partnership, the athlete is retaining the coach to get faster, fitter, running more efficient. So sometimes that is justified in the athlete's eyes. Well, I'm going to BQ. You know, it's seconds and minutes. Or now I was able to graduate from a 10K on your watch, coach, to a half marathon to marathon, but I still find myself not able to get over that half marathon hump. Being able to from an expectation standpoint, be in sync with the athlete. Again, going back to your original question, what do you tell a runner when they cross the finish line and didn't meet the desired finishing time? And then how is that conversation a week out? And how do you go about fostering that conversation? So I gave a couple of examples, and we have some, I mean, this is full disclosure. We have athletes of mine that are on this call right here. So we can have some case studies if you want.
But they've all always far exceeded their time goals with you, Coach B. So none of them would possibly be up for that sort of thing. No, it's a challenge, and you know, I don't want to suggest that I have any answers to that, but I think you're right in that there's not a specific thing that you say that changes anyone's mind. It's always individualized, but also there are principles as a coach that you show up with and that allow you to do that. And I think a couple things that you pulled out that, you know, others watching, whether it's here live with us or seeing this after the fact, should always remember that, you know, if you are working with a coach, that coach should never be mad at you for your race result. If you have a coach who's mad or disappointed with you, they're projecting, and that's not going to help you necessarily get better. I mean, there are instances where getting fired up at your athlete can be useful, and
I agree,
you know, for accountability and a little pissed off energies. It doesn't hurt, right? Like, but it's overused in sports quite a bit. But in general, right? If you cross that line and you have a coach whose reaction is like, "We talked about this. Why'd you do this? Why?" Like that's on the coach, really, and it's their issue. It's very rare that that's going to be a response that's reasonable. So if you have that as a coach, go ahead, yeah.
But you also need to keep it real as well. There's an art in communication. You can't like coddle and keep like bubble wrap oh, but there's you want to convey, you want to listen, and certainly the data is the data. I mean, in
Right.
more cases, the coach is going to have more than just the finishing results from the website. You have access to the athlete's data, so you're able to look at it objectively, mile for mile, so you can really get into the details of the effort. And because the athlete has retained you for perspective and honesty and clarity, and to help navigate their wellness journey as best as possible. So you have an obligation, a duty to articulate, and if you feel you have a good handle on what the why may have been, what the contributing factor or factors may be, and not to be shy about this, like talking through it. If you know that the pacing strategy was too aggressive, at some point, I think that needs to come out in the conversation.
Oh, sure,
You
sure.
can't,
Yeah,
you
and
can't,
I
you
don't mean
can't.
to.
You're doing. I'm just saying we're doing the athlete a disservice. If the athlete was, you know what, I just wanted to drink 2 cups of water and have a gel. No, or I don't want to I just wanted a 2 orange slices on the course, and they, from an energy standpoint, just hit the wall at the halfway point. You have to be able to point those things out, that we don't want to do that. So there has to be kind of a healthy, open communication where there's recognition and everyone's learning. And how do we take these tangible takeaways and learn from them, and we enhance, modify our training journey for the next challenge.
It's a good reframe of the answer I was given, and I certainly didn't want to suggest that that information needs to be held back for the sake of coddling the athlete. Quite the opposite. In fact, it's coach's obligation, to your point, to be factual, to point out what is a blind spot, what they may not have seen. It's mostly just a question of tone, as I meant it, right? If your tone is, well, you let us down because you didn't do this with the gelling, I mean, you should never be hearing that from a coach. It's more like, yeah, no, we talked about this. Clearly, this was different. Your fueling was different. You've got to give the factual feedback. That's data they need to be able to include next time. And one of the main reasons we have a coach. But I don't know if I'm creating a straw man here, but for those who are listening, who are thinking, oh man, my coach was kind of pissed at me after a race or something like that, which I've heard too. That's about the coach and their ego, not about you and your running. Mm-hmm. So make sure that for those listening who are having, if anyone's having that experience, you reevaluate that relationship. Coach B, I know that with marathon season coming up and folks enjoying maybe those taper weeks, et cetera, with a little bit less running, a little more carb eating and all that stuff. And obviously Halloween's around the corner. As we think about carbohydrate, what are your top 2 favorite Halloween candies? And what 2 candies would you absolutely get rid of before any others?
Ironically, we were talking about this before we went live. So this answer already, Coach Jeff.
I know at least one of the answers because I've got a mini one right here. And just remember, for anyone listening, the mini Twixes don't count. It's basically like it's basically like a carbohydrate vitamin. It's healthy. So don't,
better than Murtin.
If you get a big one, that's a problem. But 12, 13 of these over the course of a day, that's just common sense fueling. Right, Matt? I mean, that's just, you can't argue with the science as far as I'm concerned. But Coach B, I know you're a Twix guy. What else is at the top of that? Like, what are you reaching for when you're out trick-or-treating? And what are the ones where you see them in your hand and you're like, you know what, this sucker, like, I'm going to donate this because nobody needs this.
Big fan of Twix, and I like gummy bears. So
yes,
love gummy bears. And gummy bears.
Are you particularly like, if it's not Haribo, I won't eat it? Or
well, that's one of my favorite brands. So yes, I am. I guess a little. I'd hate to say gummy bear snooty, but I do love a good gummy bear.
You're a connoisseur, I would say.
Connoisseur,
is the way I'd put it. Yeah,
yes.
No, I don't, you're a gummy aristocrat. You're a gelatin aristocrat.
I'm not going to turn away a Snickers Kind of got off the Butterfinger wagon. Those Halloween, the little coney
The candy corns.
wank. Oh, mm-mm. Nope, not having it.
The candy corn, I will
Mm-mm.
say, has the sort of it's like a head of lettuce. Like there's a period of about like an hour and a half where it's perfectly fresh and it melts in your mouth and it's kind of
Mm-mm.
good and it works. But if you get it too ripe, if you get it straight from the candy corn farm, right? You're out there, you're in the field, and you just pick up a fresh hand of candy corn. It's too ripe. If it topples over that very steep hill, it's sort of like training. Like you want to push it to the limit, but as soon as you go too far, that's when you hit injury. Candy corns have a very sharp injury cliff, and you hit that cliff, it is a disaster because biting into a stale or hard
Mm-mm.
candy corn
Mm-mm.
is torture. Like
Yeah.
it's honestly, I think it's an Eighth Amendment violation actually to feed folks stale candy corn. It's really bad. It's really bad. So yeah, that's a fair answer. Are there others that you're sort of like, yeah, if I get this, I'm not eating it. Like I'll hide it. I'll give it to somebody else. Anything like that? Or are you going to basically punch
Oh,
down on
what
anything
is
that
it?
comes your way?
Is it the Mounds bar with the almond and the coconut
Well,
mixture?
there's the almond joy,
Okay.
which is the mound with almond, and then there's the mound bar, which is just the coconut chocolate.
Yeah, the coconut chocolate for me is not a fan favorite, so it would be regifted. So it would be going right back out. Yes.
I don't think
Mhm.
that it's also possible to find a mound bar that has been made after 1994 in current circulation. Like they all seem to be really aged and not aged in this sort of like fine chocolate wine kind of way, but just sort of like this has been on the bottom rack at a 7-Eleven since the mid
Mhm.
90s kind of way. And
Mhm.
yeah, the mound bar and the almond joy are never. I do think I will say now this is obviously all a matter of aesthetic and personal taste, but I do think that high quality chocolate, high quality coconut can be an excellent combination, right? If you have a really good chocolate macaroon, like that is a quality food item. But the way it tends to be processed through the Mound and Almond Joy, I agree with you, leaves a lot to be desired.
And to each their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, to each their own.
Top three Halloween costumes you ever dressed as. Go.
Whoa. Let's see here. A Spartan warrior, like out of 300. Mm-hmm. Whoopi Goldberg in when she was a nun. What was that? Sister Act.
Wait a minute. So you not like did folks know that you were going as Whoopi Goldberg as a nun, or did they think you were going as a nun and you had to explain to them there was
No, I
an
was
NXT character?
Whoopi in that Whoopi. Yeah, I had to. There was some explaining going on there.
What's
So
the Whoopi film where she like coaches the Knicks or whatever? Is it she's got what is it? I can't remember what it is. I feel like you've got to go now. I want to see you as Whoopi in every film she's done for the next 25 years is what I
yeah,
want to.
yeah.
All right, that one I've got to see some pictures of. That
Mhm.
Spartan Warrior. What's number three?
Let's see. Oh, it was Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Probably my favorite. And we're
The
actually going. I was
Jules? Yeah.
yeah, at a Giants baseball game. It was a playoff game, so I actually got picked up on ESPN. So I was, so the blood and the little brains and the lamb
That's
chops.
really good. Now,
Yeah,
did you have the whole crew? Like, did you have Travolta? Did you have the
I did
Wolf?
have
Like, was
Travolta.
everybody
Yeah, my
there?
buddy Darren Baugh. He was John Travolta on that. So
And the
yeah,
language.
take it. No comment.
Yeah, there was ESPN. That's a cable network here. We
Yeah.
could have for some. Looking at everybody's throwing their favorite candies now in the chat. JW said something called Coffee Crisp, which I assume is some weird Canadian thing that I've never heard of, but I have no idea what that is. BMF, yeah, right on. Yeah, let's get some favorite candies there. I think if folks have followed any of the Endeavorun saga the past few years, I got into a bit of an online tiff with one of our Endeavorun athletes who was cheating in her own candy eating contest, and wrongfully basically stole the election. She led a candy insurrection against the 100 grand bar, and which was the rifle winner, one of the most again, probably can't find a fresh one anywhere, but totally underrated candy. They've got to rebrand as far as I'm concerned. 100 grand's not, with inflation, it's not that impressive anymore. But if they called themselves the $1 billion bar, I feel like people would buy it. Right when it came out, it was the sort of monetary equivalent, right? And then whenever 1645, 1700s it first was made, it was the equivalent to $1 billion today. But I think a rebrand would do that right on. What other questions do folks have for Coach B here? Halloween related, running related. Where does Halloween stack up for you, Coach, as far as holidays go?
I love it.
What's your sort of top group of holidays?
I think it would be Halloween, Turkey Day, and
I see you as a big Columbus Day guy.
Christmas. Christmas. Yep. So I love 4th of July. Very patriotic.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, Christmas 3, Turkey Day 2, Halloween 1.
I'd say that's probably a lot of people's top 3, but not necessarily in that order, which I love. I love that Halloween is big for you. What's the Halloween plan for this Monday evening?
Oh, I like giving out. I used to like dressing up and having Halloween parties, having people over, but now I like giving out food. And when people would come to my place, they knew, okay, he's going to be giving out some awkward stuff. So like canned food, tortillas, potatoes, eggs, gels, people, and this the look of kids. And of course I would have regular candy there, but just the look at the kids when they were putting potatoes or canned foods or pack of tortillas in there, and their parents they loved it.
Yeah.
Or I think it's important to introduce healthy options to kids and teach them about fueling. So if they're getting some goos, probably not salt tablets, but things along those lines, just to make them question they rule. And I never got egged, so because it always was followed up by a healthy handful of great candy. So
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty weird. I do like the idea of using Halloween as like, we all talk about spring cleaning, but I like the idea of it being sort of like you clean your house and you just give away the shit you don't want to the kids that come to your house. Like you use Halloween as an opportunity to basically have people come and pick up your shit. I love that. Like, I think there's so many things that I'm looking at in my basement here right now that are going to find their way onto my doorstep come Halloween with that in mind. And I absolutely adore that idea. What is tortillas is just plain tortillas is honestly be like, that would like, I probably would not let my kids near you again if you gave that out. But what is the weirdest thing that you've given out? Is it just plain tortillas, or have you canned food is pretty weird.
yeah,
Like that's they're giving away some
let's just say weird. You don't want to, you don't want to be on the neighborhood watch. This house is being marked by PD because someone's giving.
I'm not suggesting you're giving out condoms to the kids or anything like that.
Yeah,
But like you're giving out canned tuna and stuff like that's weird.
Canned foods.
Yeah.
Every canned foods, they always be paid forward. So
canned foods and
sardines.
mound bars. If you go to Coach B's house this weekend, that's what you're gonna get. Right on. Coach B, thank you for doing this. Certainly if folks have questions, the chat's been quiet. I think folks are excited to just listen to what you have to say. Certainly if folks have questions. Did you get one or two?
We're talking about giving, not in the sense of like Halloween, but I will make an ask of the team here. We have the opportunity as runners, and you use the example, Coach Jake. Well, hey, Coach, but you have those items in your house, spring cleaning, you just want to get rid of them. If you have potentially shoes, watches, Coach Gloria, who's going back to her home country in Ecuador, she coaches runners there for free on her own time. One of them is vying to qualify for Boston, just missed it in his last marathon by a matter of minutes. How again, Gloria? How long?
14 seconds.
Okay. Come to the screen if you can.
Oh, sure.
No more hiding, Gloria.
Okay.
There she is.
Coach Gloria,
Um,
which is very fulfilling for me as a coach, became a coach as we were working together as coach athlete. So she's been inspired to pay it forward, and she has done it in the best way possible by giving back to people in her home country. And she has routinely gone back with shoes, or shoes in many cases that she has purchased out of her own pocket. But she has, I believe, 3 athletes right now that are in dire need of timepieces. So if you have recently upgraded and you have an extra timepiece, a way for us to pay it forward simply is to reach out to me. I can get those timepieces to Coach Gloria, and they will make a profound impact on these athletes' journeys. And Gloria can give you an idea on how they're keeping track of their time right now. But it's simple stuff like that. So, Coach Gloria.
yeah, thank you for bringing this up, Coach B. I do my best to support these athletes. They are very needed people, but they have a huge heart, a huge passion for running. That's why I committed to volunteer my time and try to provide them with their needs. And that goes from shoes, gear. I send them even the nutrition, like good things like that, because over there, the stores don't provide this, and also they don't have the money to buy. But it came across that watches are a very, very key element for their successes. 2 of them are running with old watches that last probably 2 hours, and the marathon, it was like 3 hours 20 minutes. So for the first 2 hours he was running, he was tracking the time, but for the rest of the time he was like blind about the time. And it was his first marathon. He missed qualifying for 14 seconds. The other one also had his first marathon and missed qualifying for 1 minute 20 seconds. They are very disciplined runners, and I believe if they had this tool, the watch, where they can track their time, the distance, they will become better runners. The way that they track the distance is amazing. They already know by like just sense, like, oh, this is about 8 miles or 8 kilometers, because in Ecuador is like in the metric system. And they do it very well, because when I was there running with them, it was exact the distance. But for pace, that is a little problematic, because I go, okay, go run at 80% effort or at 90% effort or at 70% effort. It would be different if they could track the pace. So I was talking to Coach V. Watches are a little expensive, and we were even in a meeting with the runners, and they were there, and I was telling Coach V, this person doesn't have a watch, not because he doesn't like it, because he can't afford it.
Well, Gloria, I'm so glad you shared that with us, and Coach B for bringing it up. We're going to make sure that we let the Endeavorun community go. I know Matt's holding up a watch right now to show us all what that looks like. Thanks, Matt. We're going to get the Endeavorun community excited about helping out these guys. So I'll make sure to put out some information about that for folks. I know, listen, if you're out there thinking of getting yourself a new watch as a little Christmas gift to yourself or holiday gift, now you have even more reason to do that for yourself, because it means you can give your old perfectly suitable watch to someone else. So we'll get on that for you, Gloria, and I'll work with Coach B on that. And also, if you can let Coach B know the shoe sizes of your athletes as well, we'll see if we can make something happen for those folks as well, to give them a little bit. If they have a preferred brand or model as well, we can do our best to tap into some resources that can sometimes be a little tricky, but between Coach B and Coach Matt and myself and others we're connected with, always happy to make a call and ask. And there's a lot of people excited to help others enjoy the sport as best they can. So thanks for bringing that up. That's awesome. And we'll make sure to link back on that. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for letting us know and letting us be helpful as you guide those athletes.
Just I want to say that I am flying to Ecuador at the end of December, so I don't know if that could be enough time to maybe make like 3 watches for them.
That's plenty. That's a good goal for us in the Endeavorun community to get you guys at least 3 solid watches. I would give you mine, except I lost it, and I actually went on Amazon the other day and bought a new one for $8 that doesn't have GPS. Oh, it's not very valuable. But if that gives me extra incentive to try to find my daughter put it somewhere. I don't know where it's gone. I'm never going to find it. It's somewhere. It's going to wind up in the Halloween candy bin, and some kid's going to pick up a nice Garmin and walk away with it. But that's awesome, Gloria. We will get on that. That's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Coach B, any parting words for folks here or watching the replay that you want to leave them with?
Absolutely.
While I crack a Twix.
Ask yourself, are you happy with where you are at right now in your wellness journey? And wellness journey doesn't always mean how fast you are in relation to specific distances. Are you just happy in general? But when we fine tune that question in the fitness aspect, can a coach or maybe attending a running retreat or a camp help enhance, sharpen your love of running? Can your social circle of friends grow by attending a running camp, whether that be Endeavorun or other? There are a lot of them out there. But I'm looking forward to joining Coach Matt, Coach Jake. Let's see here. It looks like Arena is going to be making that trek as well. It's a good investment in yourself. It's a great accountability tool in the bigger picture as you navigate your wellness journey months into 2023 and beyond. And it's a good time of the year to jumpstart 2023. So I encourage you all, whether that be Endeavorun, will be in San Diego with the 12th through the 16th, Coach Jake?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. So, and any questions you may have, feel free to reach out. Scholarships available as well. If finances are a bit of an issue, we want to help you clear those hurdles and put you in the best position to enhance your overall wellness journey as that relates to the fitness part of that. And I know that the fellowship aspect of growing your social circle is incredibly motivating, especially speaking with people in like circumstances, and to help you reach your wellness goals. So that's what I would leave you with. And thank you all. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy Fridays. Those of you on the East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast, this is going right through your dinner time. It's probably been a long week for most of you. So thank you for trusting Coach Jake and myself and being able to share the evening with you all.
Thanks, Coach B. It sounds like a great way to leave us. Catch you guys all soon at our next fireside chat. Stay tuned to our Endeavorun newsletter or social channels, particularly Instagram, for information on things like that. If you haven't had a chance to pick up Matt's new book on pacing, we joked about pacing books. Make sure to go grab Matt's new book on pacing. I actually have not read it yet myself. I've been told it's excellent. I'm holding out for a free copy. So if you get a chance to pressure Matt into sending me one as well, that would be fine. But I'll probably join the ranks and go online and buy a copy pretty soon, because I don't see that happening anytime in the near future. Take care, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Have a great couple weeks of running and racing until we're on the horn again. If you have any questions about Endeavorun, you know where to find my Coach Pete, Coach Matt, and myself.
Watch out for those canned goods.